And it seems like the games are going to get started. There we go, and it's... Oh, that's some interesting civilizations. Um, excuse me. Edie, playing in blue as Mayans, a well-known arena civilization with an awful lot of potential. Really interesting. And then we have Timotheus with Saracens, which is... It isn't the Mayans. Let's just keep it like that. I think that's everything that needs to be said. I think it is a civ that has quite a bit of potential in arena, but compared to the Mayans, it might be a little bit underwhelming. However, obviously, next game we'll be seeing the civilizations being swapped for the players, so if you can actually win one of these games where you have a disadvantage, and then you're almost guaranteed to like win the game where you have the advantage, so that's going to be really interesting for the players. And I think that's what makes these games I think interesting. But for now, I'll try and focus on the map a little bit, and I'll start with Edie. As we see probably most of the usual build order coming up, I'll just describe the map first. We see his main goal being kinda awkward, pushed against the wall. Not too forward, but still it can easily be under siege or castle drop or whatever you like, even though Saracen's castle drop isn't really... Oh, there's actually the being called by Edie, and I didn't even get into the maps that much. I was just thinking like, we have two relics in the wall over here. I'm not entirely sure why the was coming out this quickly, because at first sight, if you look at Eddie's map, you see two golds in the back. Main gold was a bit awkward, so maybe that was the reason he was calling the He had two relics in his base. And if we are looking at Timotheus' map, or Feanor's map, we were seeing that he had a pretty okay map as well. He had two relics pretty close to his base, but I think what happened is Edie actually scouted his gold being forward. He found the two relics sitting outside of Feanor's base, and based on these two things, the map seemed pretty bad, but he didn't realize that two of his extra golds were actually in the back of his map. At least that's my suspicion. I should have checked the fog of war before I've left that game. But I think the most likely scenario is that Edie only spotted like the two little downsides on his map. Because I think, even though his main gold wasn't optimal, it was really far from being a bad map because he had the two additional golds in the back. Which is quite peculiar. He even had two relics inside his own base. So even if he saw the two relics for Feanor here, I still find it kind of a really oversafe call from Edie. Obviously, you have to call a for 4 minutes, and it really sucks if you're just past 4 minutes, you find out 3 of your golds are super exposed. But, yeah. If you have all the information on the map, it just looks like a shame to see a coming out from Edie here. Anyway, we'll be restarting the game now with the same civilizations, and luckily, because else you totally wouldn't want to call a in this scenario, having the Mayans. Anyway, the score doesn't really need to be updated because it was a being called, not win or loss. I like how Edie knows his Mayans this time and still goes for the villain side of the loom. That's something I could totally find myself doing. And if I look at the map of Edie this time, first of all, the players are so close, it's really interesting. Really allows for some early aggression and some interesting plays. But okay, before there's being called, let's get into the map so we see why players are considering everything. There's a pretty forward main gold for Edie again. A bit further off the wall, but still has a lot of potential for danger. There's no back map for Edie here, so he's kind of restricted to this in his walls where he has one stone mine. This doesn't count as a bulk stone, which is actually kind of a pity as it's kind of a suboptimal stone, and as Mayans you probably want to have like a great stone. I mean, it isn't too unsafe, maybe even a little bit, but then the trees with it are just going to make it worse. And if we look at his extra stone, which is here at the back, which is actually still pretty nice even though it's outside of his walls, I suppose he could wall to the side over here. And then we have his two extra golds, and this is actually kind of an awkward gold again with actually 6 sides being covered and 2 open. I'm not entirely sure about the rules on this. I know there's a rule on the main gold being bugged, but it's actually kind of dubious. And now we're seeing another from Timotheus coming up, and I still have time to look at this.
Naam.
I'm kind of interested why he called this. He has a gold in the back, his main gold is in the back. I unfortunately cannot toggle Fog of War right now, so we're not sure what Timotheus actually saw. It seems like he might have struggled finding the sheep a little bit. There was no boar being lamed or whatsoever. The reese has been used, and I will have to resume right now because else the players have to wait for me. There's actually both rees used for the players already, and I'm not really sure if these rees are... I don't know. The map to the back actually was open, so it wasn't even an admin re if I'm not mistaken. There was no bugged map features, except for that one gold of Edie, which was kind of dubious, but both rees being used in rather weird scenarios in my opinion. Kind of surprising. I mean, very often, when I'm casting tournaments, I see like, hey, these players have a re, but they're just not using it at all. Especially in the group stage, if you have a re, a lot of people don't think about spending the restart to have just a better map. A huge advantage sometimes, but yeah, it was probably so so scared of being close to Edie. That must be it. All the aggression. He just wants to have a boom game. Interesting to see both players use their re in the first game though. And I think the re-usage here is actually also kind of interesting considering the fact that the civs are so different, because if you're very likely to lose with a civ anyway, you're kind of guaranteed to win with it next game, you might differ your use of rees on it. And there we go again, the veil being used for Edie. Sorry, I'm enjoying this too much. At least we know there's no re coming in this time, unless there's an admin re coming out. But that gold doesn't seem too bugged to actually call for an admin re, as plenty of sides are still left open. It is, however, far from a beautiful gold, as obviously it's a tree hugging gold, and it's almost hugging the wall as well. So that's going to be pretty awkward for Edie. This being kind of an interesting gap as well. Like usually you see this back of the map where you cannot come without cutting through a tree line or whatever, but now this is actually open, whereas very often you'd see it will be added in the wall. So I think it wouldn't be too hard for Edie to actually claim this extra gold here. However, kind of interesting, and I'm kind of curious whose extra sheeps are those. I see 6 sheeps for Edie, so I think Timotheus actually lamed 2 of his sheeps right now, as he still has 2 in the back, 2 in the back. Yeah, so that's Timotheus laming 2 sheep from Edie. Is going to be a small advantage here, and no re is able to be started. So anyway, let's continue with the map. We see 1 extra gold for Edie being forward, and sometimes I'm in doubt whether I'm colorblind because I'm completely unable to spot the second extra gold for Edie over here. There's nothing in the bag. There's 1 over here. And are you telling me that this is supposed to be the second extra gold of Edie or something? Because this is just an extra on the map, extra on the map. Here we have 1 for Timotheus, another one. Yeah, so this one of these is probably supposed to be Edie's second extra gold. That's a bit awkward. Considering his stone placement, as he's playing Mayans, I suppose if you wall this off, it isn't as bad, and once you're on stone, spending 10 stone on walls isn't too awkward, but it isn't the most beautiful place either, but I think it's doable. On Timotheus' map, however, even though I was calling out Edie's gold on being that bad, so far forward towards Timotheus, he actually has kind of a poor gold himself, having all of his golds forward towards Edie as well. So the aggressor is going to be really going to be having an advantage here, considering gold control. The map control seems to be very important here, and the one who can apply pressure is probably going to be able to deny his opponent quite a bit of gold. This is actually a really nice opportunity for a castle drop for Edie as well. If he can get control of this area with 4 golds in it, that's just a huge advantage, obviously. And the stone for Timotheus, as I believe, it isn't as important as for the mains, but I guess it's worth pointing out. It isn't in an insane spot. It's in a pretty okay spot for Saracens, I suppose. And lastly, we'll be taking a look at the relics, as we see 1, 2 being a bit sided to Timotheus, another 2 on the complete opposite of the map. I guess slightly favoured for Edie in this scenario, but anyone going first can really claim it. Small one going on. Eagle's house should probably win this one, and I'm currently struggling to find a 5th relic on the map, so it might be... It's actually in the walls of Edie here, that explains it. Obviously, the scout cap being quicker, Edie won't be able to pick it off, but at least he's going to have more HP on the scout, which might be interesting if we see monks coming out for Timotheus here, which isn't the most unlikely scenario. Considering here, we already see Loom out for Timotheus, by the way. So he's going to be 1 field behind, seems to be 1.5 field behind, might have been popped for a little while. It's going to delay his uptime a little bit, and especially if he will be going for monks, that might be... that might actually make quite a difference. Beautiful baller by Edie. He's pointing it out himself, not me. I wouldn't say I would do any better, so I won't judge. However, even though Timotheus might actually be down on population a little bit, we have to recall that Edie actually lost 2 of his sheep to Timotheus, so that's going to be a bit of an additional food source for him, and I didn't even see the scout of Edie being snuck in here. He's going to give quite a bit of information about Timotheus' map, which is actually really interesting because he did spot all these forward golds. He knows where most of the golds are, except for the second extra one. And if we take a look at Timotheus' map, we see a bit of intel, knows about the extra gold in the north, but has actually no information on this gold here, which might be kind of interesting. And now we see Timotheus going up at 23 vils, which seems pretty early. I suppose he will be going with the marker, the Saracens. Go up to castle age as quick as possible and continue with the monk push from there. And here we see Edie actually getting on stone. Probably wants to go for the usual fast castle and go for the castle drop. Which is going to be very interesting to see. And spoken about interesting, yeah, there we have Timotheus on stone. It kind of confirms what we were thinking about the use of the market here. And I find this matchup actually really interesting, considering it seems like Feanor or Timotheus will be going for monks, and one way you might be able to stop a monk push is a good castle drop, as it's really hard to work around it with siege. It can at least confirm that you have a safe main gold, or at least a partly safe eco, and in the long run you will be able to take a big advantage if your opponent has to invest so much in an early push. And obviously he won't be adding any town centre soon if he's selling the stone in this scenario. So it's going to be interesting whether Timotheus will be in time to actually get the monk push out, deal the damage before the castle is up at such a good spot that Edie is able to simply deny the push. The feudal time isn't differing too much, and Edie actually has 2 additional veils out, but no loom. And obviously actually the scout of Edie going down is going to be a bit nasty with any monks or siege coming out. It can always be a helping hand, and here we have a lot of veils moving to gold. That's going to be 7 for now, probably 8 later on. For double monastery and siege workshop coming out is what I would expect. Market and blacksmith for Edie, so that's going to be the usual fast castle. I really like the positioning of these buildings, by the way, because you can always have the consideration of putting your buildings further in the back to make sure your opponent doesn't scout them, or having them more forward and like this, and make them function a bit like walls, because a well-experienced player like Edie might be able to predict Timotheus going for monks, especially after seeing the fields on stone. He can expect an early castle time from Timotheus. And these small buildings might save a little bit of time, especially a building like a market, which isn't as useful in 1v1. It wouldn't matter too much if that has to suffer under Mangonel fire. It's better than losing your TC to it, I suppose. And we actually see a small difference in castle time, and here I feel like there's a bit of a sloppy start for Timotheus coming out, because I would say usually when going for monks, you probably want to get out get up a little bit earlier without the loom, and from there on you want to actually have something out by the time your opponent is in castle and able to respond. There is a gate coming out, double monastery coming in. We looked at the relics earlier. I suppose since Edie will be up a bit slower, I don't expect him to drop monastery himself immediately. I think Timotheus will be able to get a lot of relics in. And this is actually something I really like. An outpost coming out for Edie, just to make sure there's nothing coming already. And here we actually see the castle coming up immediately, and that's going to be up way before any push is heading in. So it seems like Edie will at least secure his main gold for now, which I feel like if up against the monk push, this is actually a pretty solid scenario here. He's actually getting his monastery up as well, which means he's probably able to obviously get one in, maybe a second one if he's in time. Needs to be a bit careful with the scout, even though it's only 1 HP. That doesn't matter too much against one single monk being out. And we have the first one being picked up, second town center being added for Timotheus. There's no third one yet. It seems like he isn't necessarily going for a monk push, but rather for more of an eco build, which kind of surprises me, to be honest. Let me check. He did see the castle coming up, so I suppose this might explain why Timotheus slightly changed his mind, doesn't really want to go for the aggressive type of play, but prefers to maybe play it safe, go for the eco right now, and hope that Edie is a bit behind because he has been investing his stone in castles. But there's a second TC coming up for Edie, not much later than for Timotheus right now. I'll keep my eyes open for any third town centers coming out, and for the relic control, it seems like Timotheus is actually kind of on his way. Some plumed archers out already, probably aiming to snipe some monks. Needs to be a bit careful as fletching is out, but no bodkin arrow yet. Probably is enough to deal with the monks, and actually gets a convert on the scout, which is really neat against the monks. As long as he's going to lose it now, he might be able to heal it up and snipe some more monks with it. But in the meanwhile, we see Timotheus actually nicely getting these relics, and I'm kind of curious whether Edie actually has any info on these relics, and it seems like he didn't even scout the northern part of the map, as he's been more busy pushing in there. But Edie is heading north right now with the scouts, so it's going to be rather interesting whether he will be able to find these monks over here. And if he gets there, well, the question is, will he be able to pick off both, or will the scout get converted? Because he might be able to pick off one, and then Timotheus gets the convert off. So it's actually kind of a risky scenario. And it seems like he's spotted the monk. It's going in. The other monk is way too far away to actually go and try for a conversion. And the old man, well, didn't really have to luck. Timotheus is waiting with the monk over here to make sure there's not another monk going down. And there's a forward siege workshop coming up for Edie. And as I mentioned, the player who's able to be an aggressor on this map is having a huge advantage due to the gold distribution on this map. Because as soon as Edie is pushing here and putting pressure on these fields, I'm sorry for missing the converts, by the way. It seems like 3 plumed archers being converted, kind of a fifth one. That's actually a lot of converts, and there's almost as much plumed archers coming out for Timotheus right now as for Edie, which is actually going to give him a bit more breathing space for now, which I really like. But as I was mentioning, the map control with these forwards goals is going to be very important. Timotheus might be able to run for this north gold, but that's kind of a risky scenario, as obviously you're not safely inside the walls. There's 3 TCs for Timotheus right now, by the way. Obviously, as this one got added last, it will give some protection, but as soon as siege comes out, it can be really awkward as well. And I'm kind of curious whether Timotheus, sorry, actually, what he didn't get redemption yet. So he has no way of dealing with the Mongols for now, and there we have Sanctity and Redemption coming out. So clicking it in time as Edie isn't attacking yet, probably waiting for some larger forces, probably being careful because if Timotheus has redemption already, it's going to be really... it's going to be really awkward. I love it. Saracen Bloom's very strong versus buildings. Yes, that will be beautiful to see. No to a town center for Edie added yet, by the way. So that might lead to a veil count difference in the long run, even though Edie still has a slight advantage over here. Another caster being added, really nice on the goal. He will have to fight for it right now. Gets a decent mango shot. How many converts are we seeing? One. Another mango shot. The mango got deleted, I believe, as Edie was fearing the convert with the redemption. The scout actually doing some work. We're seeing Saracen Blooms versus Mayan Scouts this round. I love it. But this push from Edie seems really solid at this point, because as soon as the caster comes up, he will have a really easy time harassing this with siege, putting pressure on the gold, and then Timotheus simply has to move to the north to actually get any gold in, but that's going to be really awkward because we've only this number of... Well, what does he really have in military? There's 4 military out for him, I believe. These are mainly monks. Castle drop coming up on the stone. But even then, I'm not sure what he will be able to transfer into. To a town center coming up for Edie, by the way. Which is pretty neat to make sure he gets on equal eco in the long run. But yeah, there we have the GG being called by Timotheus. As I can really understand, because that was simply complete pressure on his goal. Nothing he could really fall back upon. And he didn't really have any advantage next to that. Just that one good fight for Edie there. Simply really gave him the game. I guess Timotheus couldn't really rely on the monks here. From here on, however, the civilizations are going to be swapped, and now the real question is, are we going to see the same story repeated, but with the players swapping sides? Or are we rather going to see a complete different strategy coming out for the players to maybe go for an unexpected turn, maybe some mind games, or maybe someone is simply going to pull off the same strategy a bit better, actually allowing to do some damage, as I still believe that even though Timotheus played it pretty solid, he could have had a slightly better uptime and simply didn't have any pressure at all here. So the question is going to be, will Edie be able to maybe get up earlier, get the pressure out in time? Maybe that's going to be a very deciding map, as both players use their restarts already. And both players only get one restart, so... Oh, I actually should edit the score as well. Which is 1-0 for Edie. So I'm really interested whether we're going to see the same tactics and the players are just going to try and practice it even stronger than last game, or whether we're just going to see a complete new game plan and hope that your opponent expects something else. Maybe have a sneaky... I couldn't really get any crazy ideas with Saracens versus Mainz in this scenario, but hey, I'm no arena expert, so that isn't too surprising. And there we go for game 2. As obviously Edie will be playing as Saracens right now and Timotheus as the Mayans, and I suppose I can get started on the map directly as we see a forward goal for Edie, but there is one and both extra goals being in the back, which might give him a bit more breathing space, so a castle drop isn't going to be as devastating as last game. Stone is quite a bit forward. I do not see a second stone in the back. The resources all seem fine. Seems like he has some nice odds on the relic here, especially if he will be going for monks. That should be 3 relics he should easily be able to get, which might really help sustain him in the long run. On the other hand, Saracens versus Mayans, I'm kind of interested in how you want to play that in the long run, actually. From here on, there's nothing too special. I didn't spot his deer yet, no sheep being lame this time, which didn't make a difference last game, but you never know. And we'll get on to Timotheus' map, as he has his main goal pretty far in the back, which should be kind of safe, I suppose. His 2 additional goals are outside of his walls, however. And he has a nice stone in the back, which is something you'd really like to have as Mayans. And his second stone is a bit more forward, but that shouldn't be the end of the world. If he's in an aggressive position, he should be able to get a stone in if he wants to continue getting more castles up for better plume production. I see 4 relics on the map right now. I'm kind of hunting for number 5, as I see one is pretty close to Timotheus and the other one... Gosh. I need like a special overlay so I can easily spot everything considering relics. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. God. Oh wait. You know what? Someone will point it out in chat eventually. I'll just try and keep an eye on the minimap in the meanwhile and show you around, considering the build orders for the player. There's nothing too peculiar is happening so far. I'm still feeling slightly disturbed being unable to find this 5th relic, but oh well. There's actually some nice deer patch in the back for Timotheus as well, which he might be able to use for an even quicker uptime. And still no one spotted the relic? Is it not about me this time? They are not in the walls, are they? Oh wait, never mind. It's actually one in the wall over here. My bad, guys. But that seems like a 4th one going to Edie. So he's 1, 2, 3, 4 really close to his base, which is actually pretty nice having that as Saracens, as they're kind of a gold reliant civ in my opinion. And it simply really helps out if you're a civ that goes for monks in the early game. But as I mentioned at the start of the game, who knows, maybe Edie has a whole different plan for this game. So we will have to wait and see what's going to happen considering that. For now, it seems like we'll be having the usual build order for the players. Like, I can go ahead and say what it is every game, but I think people would be really bored. Probably the 2nd match already. It's actually ball being alert by the scout. Edie isn't going to spot it, so he shouldn't be able to deny it. Pretty nice here, getting it through the gate. Does mean his scout is going to be a bit damaged if he's going to run into Edie, which might be awkward if he wants to try and pick up some monks. But I suppose it's kind of a nice job getting it. Forces you to not get loom, to actually get the ball or use some sheep. And then you obviously risk running into the scout of Edie as well. So I think it's good use. He isn't really looking for any fights for now anyway. And now it's just really a wait for whether we see Timotheus moving to stone as well and see if he wants to go for a castle drop. Or, yeah, as well as the same story really for Edie, where he's going to go for the market uptime. I'm not really sure what else he could try. One thing I forgot to point out as well, by the way, is these extra side goals on the side of the map, which is actually kind of nicely distributed for the players. So who knows, in the long run of the game we actually might see a lot of potential for map control over here. But for now I think it's going to be really important what the players are up to, and especially I want to know whether Edie will be going for the market up and the monk push, or whether he's maybe planning on a usual FC. Which kind of seems for now, because usually if you go for the monk push, you would be on stone right now. You would already be clicked up to feudal age. And by the way, we see Timotheus on stone as well. So that I think Timotheus will be going for the castle drop, but we're not going to see... Oh well, maybe I'm wrong. Guess what? I found it would be rather late to actually move on to stone, but I suppose with 3 fields he can be just in time. The monk bush. Yeah, sorry, it can be really hard to get out of words, especially if you have to say the same word over and over again. It can be tougher than it seems. Anyway, so it seems like we might actually be seeing the monk push coming out for Edie and the castle drop for Timotheus, and now obviously the question is, will Edie be quick enough to actually succeed with this, even though I'm still kind of in doubt, because it feels like it's a high veil count to actually go for such a push. And the main goal of Timotheus is kind of safe for now anyway. So even if he succeeds in getting aggressive, the caster will easily go up and defend his most important eco, as he can probably just maybe get a caster over here, maybe more forward, and continue building a nice eco in the back. And he's even up later to the feudal age, so I'm wondering whether I'm missing something or whether Edie might be a little bit late going up to the castle age for a monk push. Maybe I'm completely overseeing something, overlooking. Market blacksmith coming up, not too surprising. And still fallen stone for Timotheus, so I'm kind of wondering how well Timotheus scouted, because we saw him luring the ball early in with the scout, so I wouldn't be surprised if there isn't too much scouting. He doesn't know about the main goal of Edie, but I think in this stiff matchup, most players would go for a rather defensive castle placement, because as soon as you survive that initial monk push, you're actually in kind of a good spot as mains versus Saracens, I believe. And some scouting going on for Edie, trying to get some information on the map. But there's not really anything interesting to be found, except maybe the additional golds on the outskirts. Let me see, we see 4 on stone, more moving to gold. It seems like the usual. I missed the first part. Who is the most relics close? We actually have 4 relics really close for Edie. We have 1, 2, 3, and one I took an awful lot of time to find in the wall over here. And there's one really close to Timotheus, so it's going to be kind of one-sided considering relics, but considering civilizations, that might not make that much of a difference in the end. Seems like both players are going to have a pretty okay uptime. It seems like Timotheus will be able to drop a castle immediately once hitting the castle age, which is exactly what he wants. And from here on, I'm kind of curious what Edie is going to do, in the hope that he's going to change the outcome of what Timotheus tried to do last game, because he doesn't necessarily seem to be any faster in getting monks and or siege out. So maybe he has another plan, or maybe he just has more trust in his own monk micro. Now we actually have the castle coming up for Timotheus and instantly drop once he hit it. Edie has the stone for a castle as well. Usually once you're up, you're probably going to get your fields of stone, or maybe go for the stone to get a TC out. So it's actually kind of interesting that Edie is getting his own stone for a castle, which I at least assume will be coming up. Now my question is what he plans on, where he plans on getting that castle. There's a siege workshop coming up, which I really like to see, because Timotheus' siege workshop last game felt a bit late considering his uptime, especially. The relic in the wall finally revealing himself. Luckily these players are better at spotting these relics than I am. And I'm kind of curious whether he's going to move forward for the castle up, and that actually is coming up. And it seems like Edie might be able to play a bit more aggressive this game. Timotheus is moving out for his relic on the side. There are no plumed archers out yet. The first one is coming out soon, going to the right side, so it seems like Timotheus will not spot this one. So Edie making a move on the gold on the outside of the walls of Timotheus, but as I mentioned, because he has another gold in the back, it's not going to be as painful as Eddie's push last game. Oh, that sounded weird. I was kind of confused because Edie was pushing last game as well whilst he was playing Mayans, but kind of interesting how even though the Civ matchup swap, we still have Edie being the aggressive player. And I think that is something I kind of missed from Timotheus' last game. He has 1 plumed arch out right now, but really needs to be careful with the converts coming out. Managed to get in 1 relic. I suppose Edie has 1 relic in as well. Probably going to retrieve the others as well. And it seems like he's trying to start a push, but from there on, once Edie actually breaks through these walls, there's not a lot of option for any eco damage. As he's just going to hit the castle and or the TC. He might try and push on the left side, where second TC is coming up for Timotheus. I'm not sure if that's going to be paying off that much, but obviously it's better than not using it at all. 2 plumed archers being converted, and Timotheus actually went kind of cocky, tried to get the other relic in as well, and it has to pay with his monk. Might be able to win the fight here, as he's simply outnumbering it with plumed archers. And if we look at the faith of the monks, there's still 20% left to be regained as the monks go down already, so not a second convert coming in. The scout isn't going to do too much. And one interesting thing I'd like to point out is that there's no fletching on the plumed archers yet, so that means that the monks are going to have a slight range advantage. Well, maybe even kind of a big range advantage. So this is, but obviously plumed archers are pretty fast, and there's an Imperial Age coming out for Edie. And this is actually one thing I was considering in the back of my mind, because as soon as Edie tries to push harder, he's going to hit the castle. But what if he wants to hit the castle? Because once you get the castle down, he's obviously going to deny plumed archer production. Now with rams in castle age, it's going to be rather rough. But actually with 1 TC imp getting the traps out really early, you have a pretty good shot to actually move from there on. And there's actually the Mameluke coming out, which I find kind of an interesting decision here. It seems like Edie will get his desired relic in the end. So that's kind of neat for him. And I'm kind of curious what Timotheus is planning on right now. It doesn't seem like he's able to really get on the aggressive. Even if he would have fletching and Bodkin Arrow, he won't really be able to do an awful lot as this gold. But Eddie's going to hit Imp anytime soon. And even though Timotheus has 3 town centers up, and obviously there's a lot of TC time of Edie invested in going up to the Imperial Age, he's going to be behind in villages quite a bit, but still, Timotheus will have to deal with any traps coming out, and I don't think he's able to actually respond to that with anything. There's not really an option like going scout cav to deal with the monks and the siege, and even then it's going to be pretty hard on the castle fire, and Edie will be able to get anything out like pikes. So this is actually a really nasty spot for Timotheus, and it seems like he will be clicking up to him not too much later, but it might be too late already. I love the 1 Mameluke out here. It's really a unique unit, this game. So Timotheus is actually clicking up to the imp right now, trying to hit as much as he can with the plumed archers. Actually has fletching now, might be able to damage a little bit. It's only going to force some veil replacement, but this is actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tiles. It's not going to be too effective. Meanwhile, the first trap is already out. Mangonels are pushing, another monastery coming up. Block printing being researched as well, which is a huge addition on these monks. Which TC is MTC? I hope 1 in the back. It's 1 in the back. It's the 1 in the right. Okay. Because otherwise, if it was this one, yeah, you don't want to see it going down. But even if he hits it now, I mean, look at it, it's kind of some time away. It's only halfway. In the meanwhile, he has to repair his castle this long, otherwise he won't be able to get any traps out himself. So, there's really no stopping this push, and I'm kind of curious if Timotheus still has 1 trick up his sleeve, but it doesn't seem like he has any options right now but to just wait for Imperial Age. Or is he really going in with the plumed archers? Because then I'm kind of afraid that half of his army is going to be converted, or just shot down by Mangonels, really. Even though the castle is being repaired by 5 villages, I believe it's still going down slowly. So even though Imp is not far away, he still will be 3 traps behind on production. If his castle even survives to see him with the 3rd trebuchet being back right now. Yeah, rip castle. From here on, there's not a lot of options for Timotheus, really. His resource count isn't too high either. I mean, something that would come to mind is maybe try something with Eagles from this point, but that doesn't really seem like a solid play. I hear some converts going through. There's a Plume actually being reconverted. A Mameluke is converted. The Mameluke standing over here. But now he's trying to move in. There's not really a Mangonel yet to support him. He's going to get one hit, he's going to get 4 converts. Quite a bit of damage coming out from the Mangonel, and that's going to be game, and that means Edie is actually going to take game 2, and this is how I love to see the Saracens being played in this matchup. Because last game, besides Timotheus being a little bit slow and really passive for the matchup, in my opinion. Because I don't think this is a matchup you want to play for the long run as Saracens. Unless you have like a really insane map, really good gold asses overall. But I think Edie just really showed his experience with Arena in this match as well. I really like to see how it played out. Apparently monks are the hard counter to plumes. Yeah, it seems to be working out pretty well. But I think in general it wouldn't work out too well. By the way, it's 3 rounds, not best of 3, so there's actually another match coming up, so do not leave the stream yet, as there's a 3rd match coming up for match points in general, which will be important for the future stages and for the matching of the players. Last game will be Team Random Civilization, so it's going to be really interesting to see a mirror matchup as well. Even though I'm really fond of seeing last 2 matches as well. I think they were really interesting matches, great to watch in my opinion. I wouldn't call them one-sided, but I would like to have seen a bit more resistance from Timotheus. But on the other hand, this is simply how such an arena game gets decided. And last thing I'm really curious about is what the Team Random Civ is going to be. Usually, I really hope it isn't going to be one of the Civ that has been played in game 1 or 2. But I wouldn't even be mad to see a main war coming up. I love seeing main wars on Arena, honestly. Saracens wouldn't be too bad either. Oh wow. I don't want to say a lot, but I guess I called it in somewhat. As it's going to be mains for both players coming out, and Edie didn't queue a Veil this time, so he's improving. I love the direction of the players. Timotheus knowing, damn, I just lost to Mayans. I didn't do too well as Mayans, and gosh, yeah, okay. That's pretty interesting, I guess. Anyway, the main goal of Edie is going to be suboptimal, as it's 3 hugging gold again. But it's not officially bugged, it's not too bad. Timotheus is completely done with these matches, I believe. There's an additional gold over here for Edie inside his walls, kind of forward, and another one outside of it, and then we can continue straight on to Timotheus' gold from here on. On the other hand, let's just look at a stone first, because we are looking at May in War here, and one stone for Edie is really forward. He has another one in the back, and has even an extra one, even though not too pretty. It is in the back, it is safe to take, so I guess that's not something you'd always like, rather than not having one at all. Anyway, so from here on, I think we've had most of Edie maps. I'll do the relics in the end again as usual. Then in Timotheus' map we see his main gold being a bit more forward, the second gold we already spotted, and the third gold being a bit in the back with outside the wall, so still kind of a dangerous gold. I didn't really keep track of the sheep, but I believe these were Edie's sheep and not these from Timotheus. And spoken about Timotheus, we still have to go over his stone, as both of his stone mines are in the back, which is pretty awesome for him. So it seems like both players shouldn't have a too hard time getting multiple castles up this game, unless someone makes a really decisive fight early in the game. And as I mentioned, I would continue with the relics right now, which are positioned kind of interestingly. Two actually being really close to each other in the north and a bit more to the south as well. So the fight of relic control really seems to be in this kind of relatively small area, which might be slightly favored to Timothius. And with these relics being placed here, the additional goals of the map are also generated on this side. So for the long run of this game, if we're going to see it, the left side of the map might be very interesting. And considering the tactics I would assume to come out is... I think we're going to see something like both players did on Mayhen's last two games. Go for the castle drop, place it kind of defensively to make sure you always have access to your gold. I might see Edie placing it at these resources to secure it, as this gold seems okay to save. On the other hand, it might also be interesting for the players to move to this side of the map, and I think I hear a boar being lured by an eagle. I believe this is the boar of Timothy's, another lamed boar. As I'm trying to spot the second boar of Edie actually. Ah, it's over here. So that one isn't being... It's just the one of Timothy's himself. Anyway, as I mentioned, the castle drops is going to be kind of dubious. You might be seeing a player going for a more aggressive drop to go for the map control, but I feel like that might be kind of a greedy play as well, as these castles are going to be extremely important to actually have the unique unit production up as well. So I think both players are going to be rather careful with their positioning, especially later on, but in the early stages of the castle age it might be... I wouldn't be completely surprised to see someone gamble on a more forward castle to deny the opponent resources. I believe balls simply do run back with a stick inside the walls, but the time it takes to actually run back takes a while. It is kind of random, so what you have to do in such a scenario is make sure you're going to hit it as soon as you see it running. Make sure it's in range of your vills. It's kind of nice because only one ball will rot instead of the two of them. And yeah, the deer being pushed for Edie is same for Timothy, so that's not going to make an insane difference. Even kind of a bit hard for Timothy's right now as he's pushing it outside of his gate. Using the sheep nicely to open the gate, needs to be a bit careful of the scout, but both players obviously still busy using the scout to get a deer in, so I think you can assume such a thing. Worst case scenario, you lose your sheep, but on the other hand, if your opponent is pushing in deer and you're unable to, you're in kind of a peculiar scenario as well. There we have 2 on stone. On what stone do we see Edie over here? The forward stone. Not too surprising. I'm just still kind of curious where the castle drops are going to be. I would love to see a castle going up over here, but as I mentioned, it is going to be risky. You are going to risk your plumed archer production, and as soon as you're going to lose out on production in such a mirror match, it's going to be very costly. Edie up 1 vil later. I don't think that's going to make a whole world of difference, but obviously being up to castle age later as well might make a difference in when you're able to drop your castle, and obviously that is going to influence your decision on where you are going to drop your castle. So from here on 3 on stone for Edie, 2 on stone for Timothy. A slight difference in build order here. Might be kind of caused due to the difference in clicking up as well, having 1 field extra. I think this might has to do that Edie is willing to go up a little bit slower, but doing that, he might be able to drop a second town center sooner. I guess it's kind of a consideration, because Timothy's on the other hand will be able to get his castle up maybe a little bit early if he gets through the feudal age correctly. Yeah, but I don't think we're able to see a huge aggressive castle up coming in, because you will just have to send so much forward. Blacksmith coming up. Wouldn't be surprised to see market. There we have it. And same story for Timotheus. And now on the same field count, Blacksmith is going to be up a little bit earlier. So I think Timotheus is going to nail it with 1 pop less. I think Edie was able to do it as well. But as I mentioned, this might simply be a difference in consideration. I don't think it's going to make all the difference in the world, as the castle times will probably be pretty close. there we have it. 6 seconds difference. Same village account, so in the end the decision didn't matter too much. Maybe there's a slight difference in resources gathered, but I don't feel like doing the math right now. 6 on stone for Timotheus, 5 for Edie. Obviously Edie had an additional 1 early on, so he will need 1 less. And 3 on gold, wouldn't be surprised. 3 on gold as well. I guess we're going to see kind of a defensive castle drop coming for both players. And then I think it's going to be also very interesting to see who will be going for monks first. I see that Timotheus has 2 damage on his Eagle Scout. I don't think that's going to make a difference in any monk was, though. Maybe if Edie is able to sneak in another hit, but then Timotheus is able to run back into his base, get a monk out, heal it back up, and then you're kind of on an equal basis of scouts. It might seem like he will try to anything, but maybe he's just getting all the vision. Considering vision, I'm kind of curious how many info the players have, how much info the players have on the relics, and it seems like both players haven't scouted the relics so far. And there's also not the additional golds, as they obviously have been investing a lot of time in pushing the deer in. Which I'm not saying is wrong, but it's just going to obviously lead to a different result than this. And here we see both players up. And now I just want to see the castles coming up. Defensive castle coming up for Timotheus, even though he went up with 1 vill earlier. On the other hand, had an additional vill in the feudal time. And actually, Edie is going to drop a TC first instead of going for the castle. So he's going to be pretty behind on Plume Archer production, but might be up in the vill count by quite a bit. Which is an interesting consideration in my opinion. This is actually fairly interesting. And I'm kind of curious how it's going to work out, because before Timotheus is really able to go aggressive, he will need to add a siege workshop, but on the other hand, you will simply lack in numbers of plumed archers if you delay your castle. But there's the castle coming up for Edie as well, so the castle of Timotheus is now finished, so I suppose it's going to be like a 1 or 2 plumed archer difference. In such a scenario, I feel like the monk micro will make a bigger difference. On the other hand, if we take both into account, it might be kind of interesting. And obviously the castle is going to play quite a big role as well. Okay man, this isn't the best of 3, but it's just playing out 3 rounds because the players play for points for future rounds as well. And there we go, the Eagle's running in, the castle hit coming through. 2 HP on the Eagle of Timotheus. Well, if he can make it back to base, he can just heal it up with a monk, even though he doesn't have a monastery yet. He's going to reveal the plumed archers. Difference is slightly bigger than I thought, maybe 3.5, 4 plumed archers difference. And picking off the Eagle, a small victory. But as I mentioned, no monks out for Timotheus yet. There's a monastery and 1 monk for Edie, but I believe Edie still doesn't have any information on... Well, actually he did scout the relics now, so he knows the position of 3 of the 5 relics. He's a bit afraid to move out, as he needs to be careful with the plumed archers. And Timotheus is now actually getting nicely into position to take a look at the relics as well. He spotted 1, didn't spot the others. He's going to run in. We see fletching versus no fletching, 4 versus 5 plumed archers, but the monk for Edie, which is kind of interesting. But it seems like Timotheus having some nice micro here, not really paying off because, yeah, who has ballistics at this moment? Well, actually he did a fair share of damage, but obviously we have the monk here. And fletching now being researched for Edie as well. And still no monks for Timotheus. Kind of an interesting decision. And no second town center either. I feel like Timotheus should be floating resources at this point, but it seems like he is saving up stone for a second castle drop and simply outnumber him with plumes. However, the military count is kind of equal for now. I guess the monk is paying off. Bodkinaro now being researched for Timotheus. I wonder whether Edie is on his way to Bodkinaro as well, and whether he's actually, yeah, he is working on his 3rd town center right now. I really find it interesting that neither player really made a move on these gold spots, but on the other hand, we're really seeing the focus on the relics right now, as I mentioned earlier in the game. which is obviously fairly important as well. And it looks like Timotheus wants to pull it off with the micro again, using his vodka arrow advantage to just poke at one additional range. But Edie is going to get the first relic in, and now it's still... There's +1 defense for Timotheus as well, so Edie lacks 2 upgrades right now, of which vodka arrow is going to be the most important. Probably has to play a bit safer now, but I don't think Edie really minds playing safe at this point, because he's already 13 villages ahead, and there's still no additional town centers coming up for Timotheus, and there's still no second TC up for him as well. Oh yeah, that's actually the second caster coming up, and this time it will be more focused at these additional gold mines. And now from here on, I feel like we really should see the role of aggressor coming out of Timotheus, and Edie being a bit more defensive, because Edie simply is investing in the long run a bit more with these 2 town centers coming up. It seems like he's going to make another move for the relics, and it seems like it will be uncontested. Timotheus is more like, hey, just get me this gold over here right now, and I'll be playing for the short game. Edie seems to be focusing on the long run, and from here on, I can really see this happening 2 ways, because either Timotheus has to make a successful push, get the plumed archers out, get Imp faster, because he isn't, even though Edie has more fields out, Edie is also investing a lot of villages to actually, is investing a lot of food to actually get the fields out, so that's going to delay his Imperial Age an awful lot, and we see Timotheus clicking up right now. And from there on, if you see Imp, the traps become available, the Siege Ram becomes available, even though Siege Ram is going to be pretty hard to get on the 1TC, because it requires quite a bit of food. Kind of a sloppy fight by Edie. Doesn't have the +1 defense, but they both have vodka now, but maybe we'll be seeing Bracer coming out for Timotheus soon. Small outpost scouting being done. I think it's really... The push of Timotheus now is going to make or break the game. In the long run, Edie simply will be stronger, will have more resources to spend, and will have a more solid eco, unless Timotheus is going to break a dent in it right now. The relics are being slowly gathered by Edie. I think the 3rd one is on its way right now. Here we see the plumed archers, no imp yet. It's getting the +2 defense upgrade. The +1 defense upgrade is done for Edie right now. Small fight coming through. Considering numbers, it's awfully close. And the double Peter coming out for Timotheus. I was expecting trebuchets as soon as possible, but I really like the potential of the Peters as well. However, Edie does have 3 town centers, so I don't think Timotheus will be able to pick off an awful lot of fields. But forcing the idle time is going to be a huge deal, especially just getting the villas of farms is going to delay his Imperial Age. And that's going to be a huge difference as well. Ballistics coming through for Edie now, which is kind of big. And double manga now, getting a decent shot, not insane. It seems like both are going to get picked up and traded for like 3, but Edie has a nice response time getting his plumed archers. A bit of an awkward route, probably wanted to move him this way, have deleted the wall for it, but... We have the trebuchet coming out for Timotheus right now, and something I want to see is the pressure going out for him, and we actually have 2 Petards here for Edie as well, so maybe Edie was planning on doing the hit as well. Needs to be a bit careful though, because as I mentioned, I kind of want to see Edie on a more defending role right now, because you don't want Timotheus to do too much damage. Because Timotheus being Imp simply has the capabilities to deal more damage, in my opinion. Bracer is now researched, 2nd defense upgrade for Edie coming in, 3rd defense upgrade for Timotheus, and the 2 traps are now deploying. Eddie's just going to try and make an aggressive move, but I'm not sure if I agree with this one, because I feel with the trebuchets, Timotheus has a good chance to push, but now I think more about it. The ramps of Edie are actually kind of scary. They can soak so much damage that if he adds a few more, he might be able to actually snipe off the traps before they get a castle. A lot of damage coming in for Timotheus already, not having the strongest eco. Eddie trying to convert. And the GG being called because Timotheus eco is actually just getting destroyed right now. I'm kind of surprised by the GG, but I guess Edie being in and just able to shut down almost all of his eco is too big of a deal, because if Timotheus has to move back to defend his own base, from there on he just isn't going to push at that point. He will have to be careful not to lose his castle to rams, and he actually gets in a really awkward position. Because moving back means he won't be pushing. If he isn't pushing, he isn't focusing on the long run of the game. And if we look at the field difference, the long run of the game is really in favor of Edie. And sorry, I meant Timotheus needs to focus on the short run of the game, because he needed to close it out right now. And Edie actually, I have to be honest, like, I doubted this decision here, because I thought it might be very risky if he would lose his castles and wouldn't be able to return anything in, wouldn't be able to do anything in return. But on the other hand, if you look at how easy Edie just wiped out most of the eco of Timotheus here, yeah, that was really paying off. And the ram simply denied the trap setting up too soon, which is actually really interesting to see. So even though Edie was playing for the long run, kind of a relatively short game for Arena, I suppose. Really interesting matches in my opinion. I found it really I really like game 2 as well, where Edie was really showing what I hope to see from Fern in game 1. We still have to respect Fern though, obviously, as he really... obviously Edie is a very experienced player, so it's a hard matchup anyway. But... yeah, the last game was an interesting difference in decision. And I feel like Timotheus once again wasn't able to deal the damage he needed to do in time to actually make it worth going aggressive. Just like with when he played the Saracens, he was playing really safe for someone who based his eco on being the aggressive player, and the Peters came through and he was a bit... he had to deal with the mangonels. I have to give that one to Edie, because he actually did a beautiful job predicting it. Well, maybe not directly predicting it, but having a response ready for these, for this more aggressive play of Timotheus coming in. Great matches to watch, and really happy I could cast them for you guys. I hope everyone enjoyed it. I want to thank you all for being here. I won't be casting any more games for now. I'm not sure, I don't believe there's anything else being scheduled for the upcoming hour. Nothing on the event calendar, I believe. At least for the upcoming hour. Anyway, thanks for watching everyone. If you have any feedback for the stream, please let me know. Send me a whisper, add me on Verbally, leave it in the chat, whatever you like. I'd love to improve. If there's anything annoying, if I can do anything to make it better, just let me know. Thanks for all the positive words in the chat, by the way. I really enjoy doing this, and I hope to see you later. You will be able to find me and many other great casters on Verbally Official at any time. So if you haven't done it yet, just go ahead and follow the stream to not miss any action. So once again, thanks for watching, and see you next time.